we will look at solving absolute value inequalities. Let's start out by having absolute value of x is greater than 2. So let's think of the values that x can be in order for this to be true. Well, x can equal numbers greater than 2 because we have 3, 4, 5, 6. Absolute value of all those numbers will be the positive. And then the other set of numbers, if we plug in a -2 or if we bring our sign over, x is greater than -2. Well, if you plug -1 in, 0, 1, that's not going to work out because 1 is not greater than 2, 0 is not greater than 2, so on and so forth. But if we look at values less than -2, so that would be -3, -4, -5, so on and so forth. Absolute value those and you get the positive values. So with inequalities, absolute value of inequalities is similar to equations, but when you negate your right side, then you have to flip your sign. So absolute value of x minus 8 is less than or equal to 1. And on this one, I am not going to graph or do the interval notation. You can see that on solving inequalities video. So let's begin. So this x minus 8 can equal less than or equal to 1, or we can have values that are greater than or equal to -1. So this can be greater than or equal to 1 and it will hold true. So add 8 to both sides, and you can do this one at a time or I've done it at the same time. So x is less than or equal to 9 and x is greater than or equal to 7. Now since 7 is less than 9, if you flip this completely around and match your x's up, we actually have a compound, which I guess these are compound anyway, but we can write this as one inequality. I don't mind the answers if they are separated. You can put it all in one if you want to, but you have to make sure that it holds true whether you have the x in there or not. 7 is less than 9, which is true, so we can combine them. And you always take your smaller number, flip it, and see if the signs are going the same way, and then see if your numbers are going in numerical order. But besides that, if you don't want to do all that work, the separated answers will be fine for me. Five times the absolute value of 9 minus x is greater than 15. With this, we cannot distribute that 5 through, but we can divide it. Again, absolute value is not the same as parentheses. Now that we have the absolute values isolated, we have 9 minus x is greater than 3, or the 9 minus x can be less than -3 in order for this to work. Subtract 9 to both sides, so -x is greater than -6, and -x is less than or equal to -12. If we divide by -1, x is less than 6, and x is greater than 12. Remember, you must flip those around since we were dividing by -1. And I didn't write that, but we can see that we are dividing by -1, we flip them. Now these two, if we flip the 6 around, 6 is not greater than 12, or as you can see, 6 is not greater than 12. So these two will have to stay separated. 8 times the 8 times the absolute value of 2x minus 5 minus 7 is less than -63. So add the 7 to both sides because we have to isolate the absolute value before splitting it up into two inequalities. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to use my calculator. 56. Okay. There we go. And then we divide by 8. So we have absolute value of 2x minus 5 is less than negative 7. Hold on. We have absolute value and a negative value. So anytime you have a absolute value less than, greater than, equal to a negative value, what you need to do is think of this in terms of positive and negative. So absolute value is always positive. Bring down our sign. Our 7 will always be negative. Now, positive number is less than a negative number. That is false, so this one will be no solution. Okay, the next one, negative 9 times absolute value of 4n minus 8 minus 7 is less than 65. So we're going to add the 7 over. Divide by negative 9. So we have absolute value of 4n minus 8 is greater, not greater than, we have to, it is greater than. I wrote it as less than. Since 9 is negative, we have to flip the sign because we divided by a negative value. And then this will be a negative 8. Okay, now we have an absolute value with a negative value. So we're going to go positive, greater than, and negative. Now you have to think, okay, is this true or false? Are positive numbers greater than negative numbers? Well, that's always true. So this would be all solution. So no matter what number you put in for n, this side will always be less than 65. So with absolute value inequalities and equations, you must set your absolute value up into two different equations or inequalities. Before you do that, you must isolate your absolute value in order to do that. If you do not get both or do both inequalities or equations, you may lose half of your points because you didn't do half of the work. So this will conclude solving absolute value inequalities.